Around New York City, the fight for your vote. Your front row seat to the battle for New York's next mayor. It's the old guard clinging to power, chasing a candidate they never saw coming. Every night, our experts break it down.
What New Yorkers want above all else is authenticity.
He's been more visible in the Hamptons this summer than he has been on the streets of New York City.
We're listening to the people who matter most, you, the voters.
He is the shining star. He's working very hard. And I think he would work hard for the city, too.
And when the candidates sit across from us, nothing's off the table. What's your plan to make New York City feel like a safer city?
Cupp, that's your perception. Of course, there's a lot of crime.
So what's happening right now? Let's dive in. Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, where it's Friday, August 29th, before a long weekend. We have just 67 days left until this all-important New York City mayoral race. It's right around the corner, and the whole country's watching. It's all anyone's talking about. We've got it all covered right here. I'm Cupp. Let's dive right in. Later in today's show, we're going to take a look at another important voting bloc here in New York City, Jewish voters. But first, let's discuss the big picture and how Latino voters view the candidates as we head into the general election. There are approximately 1 million registered Latino voters in New York City, which represents 23% of the city's voting population. That's a large voting bloc. After Labor Day, this race could be far closer than anyone imagined, and that 23% could really make a big difference come November. So joining me now for the bigger picture is JC Polanco, attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. JC, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Big fan of yours, Essie.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Before we get into some of the nitty gritty here, just talk broadly about Latinos in New York City. What issues are they focused on generally? I assume they're similar to what everyone's focused on. And then what concerns do they have specific to their community?
In your intro, you said it perfectly. You know, we make such a large part of New York City, almost a third of New York City's Latino. And we come from over 20 different ethnicities, and we're so divided on class and race and age group. There's big generational differences among us, but I got to tell you, the issues that concern us are many of the same issues you've heard earlier, and the issues that concern most Americans, and that's crime in our communities, that's economic development and jobs, that's safety, it's affordability. These are things that matter, but there's another very important issue for Latinos, and that's education. Education matters a great deal. That's why so many of us support charter schools and why so many of us come here in the first place. Our parents come here so that we have an opportunity for success. And many of us, that key to success is education.
That's a good point. You just touched on this. I want you to unpack it a little bit. Describe the makeup of the Latino vote in New York City. Is it older? Is it younger? Is it educated? Is it socially liberal or conservative? Is it a mix? Just do your best to sort of give me the contours of the Latino vote.
Essie, all of the above. As I mentioned, there's
all
20
of the above.
All of the above. There's 20 different ethnicities, and we really come of all races, all classes, of everything you could imagine. But you know, some of the questions I always get is, are you guys conservative or are you liberal? I'm a centrist, and I love to say the Latinos are centrists because we're liberal on some issues and conservative on others. But our young folk, like my daughter, these guys are crazy progressives. They tend to they tend to march to a different drum. So, for example, the younger Latinos don't care about firsts. For example, Essie, we've never had a Latino elected official citywide or statewide ever, and we've been here since the 1800s. Every other immigrant group has had that opportunity to reach the greatness of citywide officials or statewide official. We've never had it, right? So that means a lot to older folks like me. Like, we want to have a shot. We want a seat at the table. It's like we always drive every other immigrant group to the top, right? We drive you to the dance. Can you let us inside, right?
You're supposed to dance with the one that brung you.
Bring
That's
us
the first rule of politics.
Every single group. Essie, think about it. The Jews have experienced the top citywide and statewide. Italians have experienced the same. African Americans, both Black and Black Caribbean, have experienced that. Asian Americans have experienced that. Latinos are left in the dark. And it's time, many of us are saying it's time for Latinos to be respected. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Democrats have taken the vote for granted for so long. We don't have the same successes as Latinos.
We're going to get into that. We are going to get into that. Don't worry. But these young, your words, crazy progressive Latino voters.
My daughter's going to kill me.
Are they going out to vote? Are they paying attention to this mayoral election?
Oh
Because
my
typically young
God.
voters are not reliable voters, but we know that Zohran Mamdani captured a bunch.
The Mamdani effect is like no other. The man has used social media in a way that I've never seen before. Everything is a movie. How many times have we seen him on social media? It's a real serious thing he's done. He's captivated the hearts, the minds of these young folks because he's spoken to them directly. And guess what? He is one of them. He's a millennial, right? He's only 33. So he connected with them
Right.
where they get their news, Essie. And he gives stories and he's fun. He was a happy warrior. And he brought in thousands of new voters to the rolls to vote for him in last week of a close primary in June. So
Yes.
yes, he's captivated them. And I think you're going to see more people come out this time around. I see more young Latinos because he's spoken to them in a way that other guys haven't.
Well, speaking of, the 2021 Democratic primary attracted the second highest Latino voter turnout rate in any New York City primary and the largest overall Latino voter turnout in a municipal election. That was 2021. Are you expecting more turnout among Latinos for this election?
Absolutely. And there's two reasons why. One, you're going to have the young progressives from the USSR of Western Queens and those that identify with socialism or socialism doesn't scare them. They're going to come out in large numbers. The people that really like him. And then you're going to have another group of people. And these are your older Latinos, the people that remember Andrew Cuomo from Hurricane Maria, the Andrew
Right.
Cuomo that went to the Dominican Republic. And you remember Curtis Lewa that we saw all our lives growing up in the subways with that red beret, who talks about
Yeah.
safety and keeping your grandma and your abuela safe. So you're going to see a real divide among Latinos in November between young and old. And I think I don't call myself old. You know what I mean? Right? Like between the really young guys and the rest of us. And we're going to be very engaged this time. And I think that vote is going to be split. You're going to see a lot of that go to Andrew Cuomo, a lot of it go to Sliwa, and a lot of it go to Mamdani. I see young people voting for Assemblyman Mamdani in large numbers.
So you did not mention the incumbent, Eric Adams. You
Right.
think, and we've been saying this, and people have been sort of agreeing that Andrew Cuomo's inroads are with older Black and Latino voters.
That's correct, Essie. That's his inroad. That's his base. That was Eric Adams's base, but it's no longer there. He's in the single digits, and this is an important time, Essie. You know, you've served in the NYPD for 2 decades. You were a state senator, a borough president. You were mayor. Maybe you didn't get the hands you should have been dealt with, or maybe you made some mistakes, but this is the reality. It may be a good time. Just read the tea leaves. Look at what's happening. Drop out of the race. Endorse former Governor Cuomo. Make this a 3-person race between Mr. Sliwa, former Governor Cuomo, and Assemblyman Mamdani. Look, this is the issue, Essie, and give me a second. If the leader of the free world, commander-in-chief of all the military, and former President Joe Biden could look at the poll numbers and say, I got to step aside, why in the world doesn't Eric Adams just say, look, this didn't turn out for me like I planned. Let me support someone else or leave and make this a race where we can actually have an opportunity to perhaps see something different in November.
I've noticed in my many years covering politics, JC, that self-awareness and humility are not typically qualities of successful politicians.
I
So
think you're right.
we're not expecting anyone to drop out, even though they probably should. I've got lots more questions for you, so stay right there. Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. We'll be right back. I'm back here on Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, where we're laser focused on this New York City election. One more time with JC Polanco, attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. Let's talk. This applies to New York, but also broadly as well. What are some mistakes candidates make from either party courting Latino voters?
Well, I think first mistake is thinking that we're a monolith. We're not. We're so diverse. Another one is that thinking and talking to us in Spanish or putting a Spanish commercial is how you get to us. Not understanding that we are as American as you are. That's another one. And not realizing that we are part of the fabric here. One of the things that continues to bother me is how, we keep driving you to the dance, but you don't let us into the party. We want to be not only rely on our vote on election day, but man, let us in, include us. And as you heard on Hamilton, the play, we want to be in the room where it happens.
Yes.
And it's time that happens. So we want to make sure that we're included in the conversation. And another thing that they make a mistake on is on social issues. They think that, because immigration is so important and so many of our parents may be first or second generation and we're so close to that experience, that somehow we're all agree with undocumented immigration and a porous border. or somehow believe that we're all liberals and believe in all of these super criminal progressive policies. We don't. And
Yeah.
that's the idea that you could on cultural issues, when you have such a swing voter like thinking that you're going to appeal to us by not responding to, for example, having $110 million being spent on a commercial where Vice President Harris says that she supports transgender reassignment surgeries for convicted felons on taxpayer dollars, and not respond to it, you're going to lose some Latino men. And we saw it in 2024. So be very mindful. We're not a monolith. Speak to us like you speak to anyone else, but include us and let us be in that room.
Well, speaking of 2024, Trump won a record share of Latino voters in 2024. He went from 28% in 2016 to 42% in 2024. That should be a huge wake-up call. What are Democrats doing to win those voters back?
I got to tell you, I don't know what they're doing, Essie. I wish I had an answer. I'll tell you what's not going to work. A Mamdani mayoralty is not going to work nationally, for sure. And it's going to send shockwaves throughout the country, especially with Latino groups. So I don't know what it is. What is the Democratic message to attract Latinos and bring them back to the fold? I'll tell you this. I think some of the rhetoric coming out of the White House may be offensive to a lot of Latinos. I know I'm offended at every time he says anything about immigrants. I didn't support the president because of that. But I think a lot of Latinos like the law and order stuff. They like to hear that, the National Guard brought crime down in Washington, D.C., and there are no more carjacks. We like some of it. We don't like others. So there is room for the Democrats to speak to Latino voters and taking advantage of some of the craziness coming out of the MAGA universe.
Let's go back to New York City real quick. About half of New York City's bodegas are Latino owned. We had on the president of the Bodega and Small Business Association, Francisco Marte, and he's very worried about Mamdani's proposal to have government-run grocery stores in New York City, particularly for its impact on the city's bodegas. Now, I lived in New York a long time. The bodega is the center of your neighborhood. It's the heartbeat of your neighborhood. It's a crucial part of New York City. What's your thought on that proposal from Mamdani and how that might impact Latino voters?
It would be devastating for the bodegas. A lot of these bodegas, I'm in the Bronx, and the bodegas are heart and soul. This is where we are. And when you tell me you're going to have a competitive market set up next to a bodega, you're competing with the bodega. Now you have a socialized entity in a city-run store that doesn't have to worry about profits and losses like the bodega down the road. Not to mention that the bodega is part of our fabric. It's part of our cultural fabric in our communities. And a lot of the owners are immigrants that come with a couple of dollars that put their money together to make it happen. So you telling them that you're going to open up a store that's going to compete with them, that doesn't have to worry about profit and losses, is devastating for the bodega. So Marte is absolutely right about that. Not to mention that is very socialist. And where do many of our Latinos come from? Many of them escape socialist countries to seek a better life here. So, telling us that you're going to have bodegas that are, government-run stores, doesn't taste good. It reminds us of a place that we don't want to go to. So for those reasons, I think it's very unpopular.
New York City, as you know, is in President Trump's crosshairs, as are many liberal cities. How are Latino voters thinking about his potential revenge on the city if someone like Mamdani crosses him on crime or on immigration if he were to win?
I think that many of us are concerned about the authoritarian regime that is this White House and where it's going. We're concerned. I think all of us are very concerned. We clearly know that an Assemblyman Mamdani will put it in the crosshairs, but I got to tell you, Essie, I think that that's going to drive a lot of support for Assemblyman Mamdani, amongst Democrats in New York City who want someone that's going to be able to be so polarizing with the president. I don't think that's going to be a drawback for Assemblyman Mamdani, but it will, in fact, be one that we have to contend with. We're going to have the federal government withhold funds. They've already said that if we continue with our sanctuary city policies, they're going to withhold it. And I could absolutely see the president withholding funds. I could absolutely see the president try to bring the National Guard. And I could absolutely see the president winning on the issue at every single level, including the Supreme Court. So an Assemblyman Mamdani issue is bad for New York City in many ways, but it could be positive for him because Democrats are going to love the fact that they may have a warrior with an Assemblyman Mamdani. I mean, that's how they're going to view it, unfortunately. In my opinion.
And Trump will love it too. I mean, they both want each other as foils.
You're right.
We talked about this, but before we go, we don't know what the Democrats are doing to win Latino voters back. But do you know why the Democratic Party lost so many?
Yeah, I think the Latino voters were completely ignored. I think that we continue to be ignored when the campaigning comes around. We're ignored. They only come to our communities when it's time for a vote. But I think if we were to be encouraged to sit at those rooms where decisions are made, that matters. And if you could remember one thing, that Latinos, because we're so diverse, you cannot win us over on progressive social issues. That's over. The idea that you're going to be silent on undocumented immigration and open borders, the idea that you're going to ignore the fact that we're concerned about the about some of these ultra progressive socialist issues, something that you got to be mindful of.
Yeah, it's you've got to come back because, we're just under 70 days from this election, but there's so much to talk about with this important voting block, both in New York City, but also nationally. I know these are conversations Democrats are having, they're conversations Republicans are having around this voting block and Democrats winning back this really important coalition. So thank you for coming on today, but you have to promise me you'll come back.
Oh, I'll come back anytime you ask me to, Essie. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. JC Polanco, thank you so much. Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. We'll be right back after this. And we're back with Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, where we're laser focused on this New York City mayoral race. And joining me now is Jacob Kornbluh, senior political reporter for Forward, here to talk about another important voting block in New York City, the Jewish vote. Welcome, Jacob.
Welcome. It's a privilege to be on.
No, I really appreciate you. This is an important conversation, an important voting block in New York City. I was hoping at first you could just talk broadly about the Jewish vote in New York City. I assume the issues motivating Jews are the same as everyone else: public safety, affordability. What else can you tell us?
Yeah, so typically the Jewish vote matters more in a Democratic primary just because, New York City in a regular year, New York City mayoral, gubernatorial, and statewide races get determined in the primary. The 1.1 million Jews in New York City, those who are adults and register, make up about 16 to 17% of a Democratic primary. So in a usual election, obviously it matters. And I wrote about it before the rise of Mamdani, in which Cuomo was banking on that vote to take him to mayoralty because, looking back at his record, at his father's record, and himself being, this mainstream Democrat, pro-Israel, committing to fight against rising anti-Semitism, he was a natural fit for that. Come Zohran Mamdani, and he just motivated something that was unlike before. Number one, in New York City politics, but also when it comes to the Jewish electorate, which was you had an avowed, self-described democratic socialist who is very critical of Israel, a member of the Israel boycott movement, who said that as mayor, he will issue economic divestments, economic divestments from Israel. And despite that, he was well received mostly among the younger voters, and that includes younger Jewish voters. And so, as he inspired a whole generation of new and younger voters, he also inspired those Jewish voters for the same fact, because he focused on the issues that matter on a daily basis, which was affordability, which is public safety. And yes, polls show that there is a decline and a drift among Democratic voters away from Israel. And that translates also in how American Jews, mostly young American Jews, respond to both the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but also the Gaza war. And he managed to sort of separate between the policies and the views you hold on a particular conflict region, despite people having an emotional attachment to Israel. We can discuss that. And actually, inspiring and motivating people to go out to vote. And he had that clear contrast. Andrew Cuomo didn't necessarily campaign for the job. He banked on block voting endorsements, which is typically you sit around a table with some Jewish leaders. It's mostly in the Orthodox community because the Orthodox voters follow guidance from their rabbinical leadership, and you just close the deal and you rely on them to turn out on election day. But that didn't matter because Zohran Mamdani beat him by 12%.
Yeah, and Mamdani has, as you mentioned, a wide edge among Jewish voters over the other candidates, despite, as you mentioned, some of his positions. They actually seem to align with a lot of the positions of New York Jewish voters. And you wrote a piece after the primary in June titled What a Mayor Mamdani Would Mean for New York Jews. You wrote his potential victory over incumbent Mayor Adams in the general election is raising questions not only about his stance on Israel, but also about how he would govern a city with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. Talk about what those concerns were around Mamdani.
Those concerns were and still exist because, number one, he hasn't been elected, but also he hasn't engaged much since the primary, specifically with Jewish voters. Those concerns are mostly, if it's public safety issues, as a member of the DSA, number one, the DSA platform calls for less priest presence, and also on Israel, right? There was this one episode where he declined to respond to condemning globalized intifada slogan. Which,
Right.
again, he has said he has never used it. There's no documentation of him ever attending a protest and using that phrase, and he never said that he will use or justify that. But he failed to condemn that, and after a few weeks of appearances and conversations with Jewish voters and leaders, he allowed himself to say that he wouldn't recommend anyone to use it and that he understands where the fear comes from. But there's sort of that new Jewish voters getting used to a mayor who is not going to visit Israel, who is not going to march in the Israel Day Parade,
Mm,
who is affiliated with a lot of those activists and those protesters who protested on college campuses since October
yeah.
7. They hold views that are some are hostile to Israel, and so there's this natural fear of what would a Mayor Mamdani be? Who would be his appointees? Who would be his go-to person? What his policies would look like? How he would engage with the Jewish community. But I have to say that he has responded to that. It's not like
Mm,
it's in vacuum, whereas there's a candidate who is critical of of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, and is also not engaging with the Jewish community and only affiliating himself with those who
hmm
are the enemies of the Jewish people. That's not the case. He has clarified his positions, he has engaged, and he has mentioned that despite disagreements, he will seek to have those people at the table and engage with them when it comes if he is elected as mayor.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because in the wake of October 7th, I covered a lot of the anti Israel and separately anti Semitic attacks on the city. And since then, the protests and encampments on college campuses. Is that still a serious issue in the city? How are Jewish voters feeling about anti Semitism right now?
So the rise of anti-Semitism is not necessarily only the protests. There's
Mhm.
this has been ongoing for decades, and
Right.
unfortunately, in 2017 and later in 2019 and in 2020, there were deadly attacks. Jews got killed in the streets of New York and New Jersey, and that was
Yes.
not
Right.
related to the conflict. That was related to
Right.
anti-Semitic attacks. So there is that concern of the rise of anti-Semitism that is not related to a particular conflict. But I would also
hmm
say that when there are these marches and these protests and Jewish students don't feel safe on campus, that's one issue. But then there's the general feeling of how this city would respond to future protests, how this city
hmm
respond to what you say is direct anti-Semitic attacks, and that's still unclear.
Thanks so much, Jacob. And thank you to our audience. I hope everyone enjoys a long Labor Day weekend. We do have a show on Monday, so be sure to tune in. And there's more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote, right around the corner.